was born on South Side Stockton, and my mother eventually moved us to North Stockton, where I grew up near Angel Cruz Park. What my mother did instill in us is the desire to want to improve ourselves and our condition in this society. I actually tried to join the Marine Corps when I was 7 years old, and I still have the letter that a captain sent me back saying, "We appreciate your attempt, but you're too young. Try back again in 10 years. And so I always had that value of wanting to serve my country and be a patriot. So as a student, I always did well in school, and I graduated Lincoln High School on the honor roll. But when I graduated, I didn't have any guidance what to do after graduation because my mother, she only had an 8th grade education herself. I never applied to a single college. I didn't know what it meant to apply for financial aid. And so what happened is I ended up eventually going to Delta College because they sent me a letter saying I did not have to take a placement test. And me not having anything else to do with my time, I figured this might be a good idea. So when I was a student at Delta College, I was recruited by the Marine Corps, and I decided to enlist. I scored very high in the ASVAB, so they wanted me to enlist as an officer, and I opted not to because that would require that I would be active duty. And the biggest obstacle to me enlisting active duty is because my son had just been born. Being raised without a father myself, I did not want to be away from my son, so I opted to compromise and I joined the reserves. As a reserve Marine, I was enlisted, and I remember the morning that September 11th happened. I remember waking up that morning, hearing it on the radio, and I knew instantly I was going to be going to war.
People in the building?
Oh, another one just hit. Something else just hit. A very large plane just flew directly over my building, and there's been another collision.
I was called to active duty to serve in Operation Enduring Freedom and stationed at Camp Pendleton, where eventually I would be shipped overseas to the Middle East to serve in what would eventually become Operation Iraqi Freedom.
U.S. warships and planes, there were F-117 stealth bombers involved, launched the opening salvo of Operation Iraqi Freedom. The attack came in waves, cruise missiles.
The only way we knew the war started is because we were awakened in the middle of the night by the sonic booms reverberating in our chests from the Scud missiles being fired at us that we were told at the time had chemical weapons, and the Patriot missiles were sent to intercept them. And that's how we knew the Iraqi war had started. I would be sent back home after the first 6 months because mission accomplished was declared. That's why I enlisted in the Marine Corps, to fight and defend my country. I would be lying if I didn't say that the experience of me being sent to the Iraqi war changed my life. And in many ways, it was a wake-up call for me. And I felt like the Iraqi war was a political war that distracted from the real enemy, which was in Afghanistan. So I would rather be more proactive and be a patriot as far as participating in politics and the policy decisions that would affect my life and those of my fellow citizens. Once I became fully motivated when I returned from Iraq, I understood that I needed to refocus back on my education, and eventually I would transfer to Sac State. At Sac State, I would do very well. I would eventually graduate with high honors, and I serve as the president of the Ethnic Studies Student Association, be very active with student activities on campus. And from there, I would be accepted to the prestigious Capitol Fellowship, where I had the great experience of working in the State Assembly for a year along with the Assembly member, and I was allowed to work on legislation firsthand, staff legislation, staff committees, and some of the legislation that I worked on was actually signed into law by the governor. So that was a really great experience. From there, I would eventually become accepted into USC's School of Public Policy, where I would also graduate with high honors in public administration. And so my focus with education and with community advocacy is to tie the two together and bring back the lessons that I've learned and tie them into how I can give back to my community and empower my community. I loved working in Sacramento, great environment. I really loved working in the state capitol. I loved attending Sac State, USC as well. But even when I was working on my education, everything that I worked on really was to focus on how can I empower and improve my hometown of Stockton, which I've never left. Some of the examples that I've fought for have been the Fair Oaks Library reopening that. I really connected the importance of understanding how literacy connects with unemployment and high crime rates, and how that was so vital and important to making sure that that part of our community had something that represented hope for them, and that was a resource for them. And I don't just stop at literacy or libraries, but also I have been very active in advocating for government accountability and transparency. That is something, having served in Iraqi freedom as a Marine, is something that is personal to me. So I'm very proactive in making sure that our government works for the people and not the other way around. So whether it's the fight to save Swenson Park, whether it's government accountability, reopening a library, I am somebody who believes that the community deserves a voice that will always be there to represent them no matter the circumstances. My name is Motec Sanchez, and I'm running for County Supervisor District 2, and I'm asking people for their vote, and I humbly appreciate their support. Vote June 5th, Motec Sanchez.